Welcome back to Futuretech. With me as always, I don't have my script in front of me, so thanks everyone for joining us. And with me as always is John Irwin. How you doing, John?
Good. How are you? Looking, it's a little bit of snow out there this morning, so we'll see how we fare this morning. So, how are you doing,
Yeah,
Craig?
and I'm doing great. And you were at the NGen conference this week
No,
or last week.
Last week.
I don't know if we talked about it on the last Futuretech, but was there anything cool Futuretech stuff related while I get my shit up here?
Yeah, no. So there was some cool tech. There was one actually a hydrogen project using carbon, which was really cool. There was a company called 2Bytes, I think. Let me double check. I want to get them right because they had some cool AI stuff that they were. No, sorry, Base 2. Jesus, 2Bytes. Base 2 had some really cool stuff. I did run into. So I said ISED Canada has these innovation, I guess, consultants where they're helping people identify grants and different things like that, which is really cool. They're not helping with the writing, which is the big part of it, but it's really cool to see that the government's actually taking a step in realizing that there's so many out there that they need consultants or they need people to help navigate that. So ran into Peter McFadden from ISED there. So it was really cool.
And we should be chatting about that too offline. I mentioned something about that a while ago, and there's opportunities there. Anyway, that's great, and we want to jump right into this because we got a lot to talk about, and some stuff is really cool. For example, this first one, physicists discover that time can flow both ways.
Yeah, really
material.
Cool. Yeah. So no, we're not time traveling yet. Yet, I say, but we'll have to see because some of the stuff we've talked about does speak to some potentials. But this article discusses it's a fascinating discovery made by physicists at the Technical University of, I hope I say this right, Darmstadt, regarding the flow of time at the microscopic scale. So for decades, physicists have known that fundamental equations governing motion are symmetrical with respect to time. So meaning motion looks the same whether played forward or backwards. However, at the macro scale, they observed that time moves in one direction due to the second law of thermodynamics, which the second law means that energy naturally disperses or spreads out. It becomes less concentrated and organized and more distributed and disordered over time in a closed thermodynamic system. So materials age and break, but we never see reassembly. So the team sought to probe this deeper using the concept of material time, the internal clock governing molecular motion within substances like glass. So the concept of material time has existed since the 1970s, but has never been directly measured before this experiment. So tracking molecular motions required incredible precision that was really only possible with today's advanced video cameras. So what they did was through an ingenious laser scattering experiment and high-speed video analysis, they were able to track molecular movements and extract a material's rate of material time. So the researchers, what they did was they illuminated a glass sample with a laser and analyzed the pattern of light scattered by jostling molecules. This random bright dark speckle pattern on the sensor conveyed how molecules were moving. Why am I having a trouble with molecules this morning? Moving over time. To their surprise, the movements were found to be reversible with respect to material time. So it's really cool. It confirmed material time accurately captures the irreversible aspect of aging. Only certain movements linked to aging influence it, much like children don't affect a car's motion, if I can give you an example. So the researchers validated this across multiple materials, highlighting it as a fundamental property. So while aging itself can't be reversed, this work overturns assumptions about time's flow at small scales. It kind of leaves scientists with many new questions, as always, to unravel about time's true nature. So, for example, how is material time related to reversibility of physical laws? What clocks tick at different paces in various substances? There's so many questions. So the flow of time itself, really interesting. It's tough to grasp my head around this, but it's always love these new discoveries.
Yeah, this was an interesting one to get your head around, because there's a lot of interesting stuff here. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions and maybe we can frame
Yeah.
this a little better for ourselves and other people. What are some of the potential applications or implications of the discovery in the field of physics and engineering?
Yeah, so this is what kind of helped me to understand this a little bit better. So that's a good question. So materials design and engineering. So understanding how molecular motions induce aging at a fundamental level could guide design of more resilient materials by engineering in shields against reversal linked motions. Kind of cool. Again, really far out concept. Um, Nanotechnology. By studying time's behavior at ultra small scales, this may reveal new mechanisms to manipulate and transform energy information at the nanoscale for quantum optoelectric applications. Um, the other thing is time crystals, and we can get into time crystals later because there was a new discovery. I think they created a time crystal that lasted 40 minutes, which was a thousand times longer than any other time crystal. So understanding how time symmetry emerges from microscopic dynamics could inform ongoing efforts to engineer time crystals. Um, so time measurement, if different materials are intrinsically tuned to track time differently, you can have novel precision timekeeping devices based on material clocks. Thermodynamics, so deeper insights linking reversible microphysics to macroscopic irreversibility could advance basic science by resolving long time paradoxes between reversible foundation and thermodynamic directionality. There's a whole bunch of different things: cosmology, statistics, statistical mechanics, the way material behavior statistically obscures underlying time symmetry. So the applications are also newer, kind of more advanced type of applications, if that makes sense. So it's nothing. It's not. This discovery to me is not related to a simple kind of concept that would make sense more to kind of like people who aren't future tech or who don't understand that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and again, it we'll get into some base questions in a minute because I'm more like to always say, okay, what does this mean for
Yeah.
us as humans? Uh, can you explain a little bit more about the concept of material time and it's related to reversibility of physical laws?
Yeah. So um there's a fascinating connection between the two. At the fundamental microscopic level, the laws of physics are symmetrical. So equations work the same forward and backward in time. But at the macro scale, we see irreversibility governed by the second law of thermodynamics, which says disorder or entropy inevitably increases over time in isolated systems. So as a system evolves, it explores more and more of these possible microstates, continuously increasing disorder. So the work on material time, what it does is it offers a new window into this reversibility, irreversibility separation. And how it does that, it observes reversible molecular motions even within materials. So it probes deeper into how and why irreversibility emerges from a more fundamental time symmetric physics. So what it could do is it can help illuminate exactly how and where within these processes the arrow of time takes hold to define kind of our experience and our perception of the irreversible flow of time. So getting into more of stuff that we might understand.
Yeah. All right. So, like, we're talking about moving forward and backward in time, but we're not really talking about that. So, like, I'm going to ask a question about they talk a lot in this article about a special angle from which you can observe a reversal of motion material. They don't really call it anything in here. And I'm sure it's not, oh, if you look at it from this other side, you can see that it's going backwards in time, there's obviously some sort of special technical technique about it. Do you know is anything about this?
Yeah. So you're right. The article doesn't provide any details about this special angle, but I did some research, and I think that what the angle that they are describing is not literally looking at the material from a different physical viewpoint. I think it's referring to the theoretical perspective or framework used to analyze the molecular motions. So what they're doing is they're looking at things through the lens of material time rather than wall clock time. And so what's material time? Material time essentially describes the internal kinetic processes happening within the structure of the material at the microscopic scale. So by studying how molecular configurations, I'm getting better at that word, evolve relative to this material time dimension rather than our ordinary experience of external time, they might be able to gain insights into the underlying dynamical equations governing motion at the very base level, if we talk about it. So it's conceptual rather than a physical angle, if that makes sense. Or maybe not.
Well, it makes sense at a level, but if it's conceptual, then how are they looking at it?
Exactly.
You
I
know,
think, yeah. Well, the way that they're looking at it, I think, is they're analyzing the data from a theoretical angle, if that makes sense. Which I didn't find any more details rather other than that, but yeah.
are there any theories or hypotheses about the true nature of time that this discovery could support or challenge?
Yeah, like the concept of material time resonates with the 4D universe where it can be embedded in a higher dimensional space. So we're getting into some crazy stuff here with time behaving differently at different scales. Um, it does challenge static interpretations of like past, present, future as already determined instead of supporting more dynamical theories where microscopic states continuously influence level processes. Um, it's there's the discovery, it essentially it provides new foundations for dynamic, relationist, emergent, statistical, and quantum process based theories of time, making it more absolute, fixed, or substantial. But it does shake up assumptions about time's behavior at different scales. So it's kind of shaking up the time world, but also so it's what this discovery is kind of doing is there's a whole bunch of different concepts out there, as we know, and there's always is. What this is doing is it's verifying some concepts and disproving others or challenging others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I guess we got to at some point delve deep into what some of these latest physics discoveries and quantum discoveries mean for our concepts of time. What it's what it means now versus what it means when Einstein did his theories.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so this one really not hurt my brain, but really challenged me to read. But it was really cool. It caught my attention, and I'm really interested to see where this takes us in the future. How this is going to apply to everyday normal life, if it does ever. But at this point, I don't really see that.
Yeah. So I'll ask this question now because you're kind of getting to it. Will this end, the wearing out of things? If we can actually shift material status in time, then can't this chair be like just brand new, like the day I bought it?
Yeah, or the brand new car smell all for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Based on what some additional research I did, so this discovery doesn't necessarily mean that the wear and aging of materials will stop, or can be reversed. The research only studied short-term microscopic molecular motions within materials. It doesn't really imply macro scale aging processes can be undone over long periods of time. So it is intriguing from a fundamental physics standpoint, but specifically this work, and I'm not saying it can't be done in the future using this research or other research, but the work doesn't provide a way to literally turn back the hands of time and restore aged, worn, or broken materials to their original states, which would be cool. The arrow of
Absolutely.
time remains pointed towards increasing disorder and entropy. So it's at this time, and you never know. Again, we as science and knowledge advances, we could get to that. But at this time, and based on this specific study, no.
So time and aging is often connected with thermodynamics. Can you explain more about the connection between reversible physical laws and thermodynamics?
So there's a fascinating connection between the reversibility of physical laws and irreversibility in thermodynamics. So at the fundamental level, again, I think I'm repeating myself, but it kind of maybe it'll help to connect everything. At the microscopic level, the laws of physics are symmetrical, so equations work the same whether they're forward or backward in time. But when we're talking the macro scale, and remember, we're looking at it from different levels, right? So at the macro scale, irreversibility is governed by the second law of thermodynamics. So what this meant was for a long time, this presented a paradox. How can microscopic reversibility give rise to macroscopic irreversibility? So the work kind of on material time offered a new window into this reversibility irreversibility separation. What it did was it observed reversible molecular motions even within materials, and it probes deeper into why macroscopic irreversibility emerges from more of a fundamental time symmetric physics. What it could do is it could help illuminate exactly how and where these processes take hold to define our experience and perception. So
Yeah, this is very interesting and at our level theoretical, because it's, we take a look at the special angle, we can see what it used to look like
yeah,
at a point in time, but it's not, it's opening a window on looking at things as time flows forward. But
exactly.
right now you're telling us that it's not really reversible.
No,